Dungeons of the Mad Mage is, of course, a pre-written adventure. And I don't know, previously to this campaign, I've mostly been playing homebrew adventures for whatever reason. And something that I've found over the last few weeks is that there's this strange sense of give and take with a pre-written module that you don't really get with homebrew stuff, which sometimes becomes really apparent, like in our last session that we just had, which is why I'm kind of bringing it up now. And it never ceases to amaze me. It's like at any one time, you've got these three forces, which are all kind of at play. And they're all sometimes pulling in the same direction, sometimes pulling in different directions. Sometimes one is stronger than the other. And there's this constant kind of dance between them. And it's kind of at that interplay, like a Venn diagram, where the three join each other, which is where D&D happens. What am I waffling on about? Well, first of all, of course, you've got the book. This is not Dungeons of the Mad Mage, I don't have that book. But the point is, Dungeons of the Mad Mage is a pre-written module. So this is the first of the three forces. The module itself, the thing that is written, that at any time you can turn to a page and you find out, oh, in this room there are these monsters, here's a map, here's the stat blocks, here's the loot tables, whatever it is. So at the start of this session, we were on the 6th floor. We had just entered a room. It's kind of at the heart of the floor. There's a large Duergar presence here, and 8 Duergar, in fact, led by a half Duergar named Skella Ironeye. And she is standing near to a clay altar. She's been trying to get through a magically locked door, but she can't get to the locked door because every time she gets near to it, this clay altar rises up as a golem and just squishes her men flat. And as we enter, we find that she's already lost 4 men. They've been squished, bludgeoned to death, basically. They haven't been able to inflict any damage on the golem whatsoever because they don't have magical weapons. And I'm fairly certain, I've not actually read Dungeons of the Mad Mage, but I'm fairly certain that if I were to turn to that relevant page in the book, then I would find all of those details intact. But then, you've got the second of the 3 forces at play, which is the party. And the party sometimes pulls in very different directions. So case in point, my character, Gorn, the dwarf, at the end of the last session, he already ended it on a kind of EastEnders-like cliffhanger, and he was like, "You have profaned the halls of my ancestors," and he's furious. The way that my character saw it, we were currently standing in the middle of these dwarven ruins, legendary underground dwarven ruins. Now, my knowledge of the lore of D&D is not as good as it possibly could be, partially because Wizards of the Coast don't do a great job of explaining lore. But I've picked up bits and pieces, and I know that basically the city of Waterdeep has been built on the remnants of this ancient dwarven civilization, which was destroyed in this cataclysm a long time ago, and this legendary Undermountain is what kind of is left of that civilization. And everyone that lives in Waterdeep kind of knows this. It's kind of common knowledge. And so here we are, walking through basically this tomb to our ancestors here. Gorn is a gravekeeper, so by his nature, he's very reverent towards the dead, respecting things that were, respecting one's ancestors, mausoleums, tombs. That's his kind of vibe, you know. He'd be a big museum guy if you ever took him on a date. Don't take him on a date. So here he is standing in this halls, and here are 8 other dwarves. And what are they doing? Are they respecting this place? No, they are pillaging this place. They are looting this place. That would be bad enough, but there are currently several large umber hulks on this floor, just destroying the walls, just bursting through walls, burrowing tunnels, just like completely ransacking the rooms, knocking down the doors, completely destroying this place. And there are enough Duergar here that if we all bandied together, we could eliminate those umber hulks, I'm sure of it. And then this place would be pristine and kept for time immemorial, so that our children and our children's children can also come down here from the yawning portal and can also experience the glory of our ancestral past. But no, they're not helping at all. They're just looting this place and then they're leaving. And more to the point, they're also following this woman, Skella, who, I mean, if you've heard Gorn's backstory video, you'll know he had dealings with this sort of person before. Extremely greedy dwarves who were actually secretly followers of the dwarven god of greed, Abathor, and he was hoodwinked by them. He was taken along by them. They were con artists. They didn't care about him, and as soon as he was no longer useful, they dropped him and let him be. And he's looking around at these dwarves, 8 of them in this room. None of them have magical weapons. Oh, Skella has a magical weapon. Their leader has a magical weapon. Is she taking on this clay golem? No, she's standing back and sending wave after wave of her own men in there. She's wearing a cloak covered in gemstones. Do they have cloaks covered in gemstones? No, she's keeping all the loot for herself. And so Gorn, as he enters this room and he's looking around at them, takes all of this in, and he's just like, what sort of dwarves are you? Like, where's your respect? For not just for your ancestors, where's your respect for yourself? You know, and so he's furious. And so that's the force coming into play that immediately kind of knocks things off what might be written in this module. And then, of course, we have the third force that comes into play, which is the DM himself, who basically has what's written in here, and then he takes what the party have just thrown at him, and kind of like a toddler trying to smash a square peg into a round hole, he just kind of has to make it work. And sometimes that's a really easy thing to do, and sometimes you've just got to get everyone to roll initiative and just fight it out. So that's what we did. We rolled initiative. So it comes around to the turn of the paladin in the party. And I think he doesn't want to have a full-on fight with everyone there, mostly because we just kind of came out of a fight, and our barbarian in particular, he's on like single-digit hit points, so we are not doing great at the moment. So the fact that Gorn has just gone in there and he's just like kicking off at them, the rest of the party is like, let's kind of rein this back in. We can't really have a fight. So it comes around to their turns in the order, and each of them is like, well, I'm holding an action. I'm taking the dodge action. Like they're being very defensive. Comes around to the turn of the paladin, and he's like, okay, tell you what I'll do. I will challenge the leader, Skella, to single combat. I will challenge her to one-on-one combat. And Skella's like, why would I fight you? Why would I do that? And he's like, well, look, tell you what, we'll have this fight. If you win, then we help you. You know, if we win, then we don't. Whoever wins this fight can take whatever on the other side of that door that you're desperate to get to. And he tells to sweeten the deal, I will take off my armor. He takes off his armor, and I will blindfold myself. He blindfolds himself. Little does she know that our paladin has as his fighting style blind fighting, so he's able to fight while blind. He has blind sight to 10 feet. Little does he realize that she, of course, is carrying this magic dagger, which she stole from the warlords of Azrak. And if you remember, the dagger belonged to the leaders of the hobgoblins, and he was blind. It is a dagger of blind sight. And so she's like, oh, you're going to be blindfolded, are you? Okay, I will do that as well. Sure. And she's thinking that she's going to beat him really easily. So they have this one-on-one fight. So they have the fight, and the paladin easily takes her down, using all of his remaining spell slots, takes her down. And then afterwards, she's dead. And then we turn around to the rest of the Duergar who were there, and we're just like, any of the rest of you got a problem? Your leader's dead. You're not beholden to her. Off you go. And they leave. There we go. The party forced its way through. There we go. And then afterwards, we were left with the fact that, well, now there's this magically locked door. And Gorn sent out his Mage Hand, which is his swarm of flies manifesting as Mage Hand. He sent it out to investigate the door from a distance and kind of look around it. As soon as his flies touch the door, Bigby's giant hand comes out the door, squishes them flat, and then they reappear around him. So the door is obviously magically sealed and will attack anyone that comes near it. Okay, so now we're thinking, well, we've got to somehow deal with this golem. We've got to somehow deal with the door. There seems to be some inscription on the door, but we can't see it from where we are because it's very difficult to read at a distance, and it seems to be kind of magically absorbing the light. So what do we do? First of all, Gorn cast web on the golem so that as it comes to life, it will be restrained straight away out of the gate. Cool, wonderful. But then we were like, okay, hang on a second. We know that there are some Umber Hulks on this floor. Do we have to fight this golem? Maybe we could be clever here and get the monsters to fight each other. If we can somehow summon the Umber Hulk to arrive, and we know that the way to do that is basically things like thunderclap, loud noises, we're like, we could do something to summon another Umber Hulk here, have it attack the golem, which would be the largest creature, and then we can just pick away at the remnants. We don't need to be at full health. We can be smart about this and get through. Remember, our paladin has 0 spell slots left at this stage. Our barbarian is like in single digit HP, so we need to kind of think outside the box. Basically, our newest member, Mamaliota, she has Earth Tremor as a spell. Kronos, the barbarian, he has a Broom of Flying, so she gets onto the Broom of Flying, staff down, I think it's actually a slipper, she throws down, makes the Earth Tremor. That summons the Umber Hulk. She gets close enough to the golem that it kind of wakes up, but not so close that it starts attacking, and as soon as the Umber Hulk arrives, she can just fly up to the ceiling, disengaging, and the Umber Hulk will just careen towards where the tremor was coming from. That's the plan. And it works. It absolutely works. It's wonderful. The DM on the fly, again, that force coming into play, the DM had to kind of come up with a ruling on the fly as to where the Umber Hulk actually emerged from, and he kind of put d6s around the edge and we had to roll, and we determined it was coming from a certain direction. And so yeah, we had one round of combat where we basically set everything up as this surprise attack, put the web over the golem, get on the Broom of Flying, Earth Tremor, Umber Hulk arrives, and then it's just this big old fight between them. And of course, the great thing about web as well, not only is it restraining the golem, but it's also obscured. It's lightly obscured terrain. So Gorn just needs to get on the other side of it, and then he can't see the Umber Hulk, and the Umber Hulk can't see him very easily. And thus he's able to shake off more easily the effects of, because the Umber Hulk has this ability where it can kind of charm you. It's a kind of charm effect that it has if it can see you, and you have to make a charisma saving throw, which Gorn's not good at. So anyway, long story short, we got through that fight with flying colours, and I felt like it was one of those moments where the party was so cohesive together. We got through that situation. Wonderful. Okay, so we've dealt with Clan Eye. Beautiful. We've dealt with the golem and the Umber Hulk. Beautiful. Now we've got the door to deal with. The inscription on the door says that only the hand of the king can open the door. All who enter gaze on something, a word I've written, and know true power of dwarven kind. So we don't have the hand of the king. It's probably in another room nearby. We would have to go and search for it. According to the book, that force, it would probably say, yeah, the hand of the king is in this room over here, and you need to go over there. And we already knew that Skella had told us that there was a dwarf king's room nearby, so that would have been a little bit of a diversion. But we were like, no, force of the book. We will not adhere to your pulling power. We will not go the way that you say. We are going our own way. Mamaliota has the ability to summon ghosts. Ghosts who follow her initiative count and do what she says in combat. Ghosts which can incorporeally pass through walls and doors, and if you get where I'm going from, ghosts which she can simply say, please walk through this wall and open the door from the other side. And the DM looks at the description of the character ability and looks at the stat block of the ghost and looks at what the book says about this room and the door, and he makes a ruling, and he says, reluctantly, fine, the ghost goes through the door, through the wall, and opens the door from the other side. And he even reads out the flavor text of the other side. He's like, yeah, the doors on this side are not even barred like magically or anything. It's just like, it's a simple like drop bar or something. Lifts it up, opens the door. Wonderful. And we find ourselves in the central chamber. And in this chamber, there's apparently this module seems to love dwarves because it keeps throwing bones towards dwarves. And Gorn has this sense as I enter the room of like the weight of the mountain pressing down on him. He's aware of his of being at the heart of the mountain. That's where he is. And he realizes, I can attune to this room. So I do. I attune to the room. And I'm suddenly, it's like being in the Matrix or suddenly being aware of everything around me. Suddenly having my awareness magnified 1,000 times, so I'm aware of the whole mountain. Mechanically, what it means is I get 20 temporary hit points, everyone else gets 10 temporary hit points. I had to do a saving throw as well, passed it. And it means I can cast at will, for free, unlimited times, the divination spell in this room. And so we cast it 4 times. And the ruling is that, obviously with divination, the more you cast it, the less accurate it is. So we can only really take a couple of these answers at face value. Gorn's like, well, what would I want to ask a mountain? I knew that there's this metallic majesty, this lady that people keep talking about, and the Duergar are digging. These are the 2 clues I've got. I know that she's deeper down and she's digging. And I'm like, if I were a mountain, that would probably hurt, right? Having someone digging into you, that would hurt you. So I was like, where are the Duergar hurting you? What are they looking for? And we were told that they are mining for power, and we need to destroy the one who stole their mine. They want to destroy the one who stole their mine, and we got a name, Phasrian. Okay? I think I wrote that down correctly. My notes, I was writing very fast in this session. Then there was the second question we asked. This one came courtesy of Mamaliota, because I was like, does anyone have any questions to ask the mountain? Where are the goodies at? Was the exact question that was phrased to me. So I asked the mountain, where are the goodies at? He has many toys, came the answer. Which we understood to mean, most of the goodies are probably with Hallister, the Mad Mage. Wonderful. Then I turned to Kronos, and I'm like, where is Kronos' brother in the mountain? And we were told something very worrying, which is the champion of the Dragon Queen is soon to meet his death. Champion of the Dragon Queen. Everyone's like, oh no, Tiamat. We don't know. It could just be, ooh, it's a divination spell. You can't really take them at face value. And finally, we asked something else. I can't remember what it was, but basically at this stage, oh yeah, there was a magic mirror in this room. There was like another portal. And I was just like, how does the portal work? And he's like, oh, you need to pluck out your eyes. It's not true. Ignore that one. That's not true. So yeah, after this, we then went next door. We had a long rest. Mamaliota cast Speak with Dead on Skella, basically asking her some follow-up questions from what we just learned from the mountain. We learned quite a lot of things. We heard an update about the Mage killer that we haven't seen since Skullport. She said the last that they saw him, he was a halfling with a stick, and we were told about this time where she and her men were chasing this halfling through this floor, and then there was a blinding light, and then he was gone. We asked her, how do we get down to the next floor? And we were told, basically it's in the southwest, Acolyte bedchambers, wonderful, near the toilets, lovely. We ended the session with ourselves heading off southwest towards the direction that Skeller had told us to go. Massive lore dump there, because we learned a lot of stuff from the mountain, we learned a lot of stuff from this dead body, and we were able to find out exactly what's going on here and then move on. But yeah, at the end of the session, just to recap, those three forces, man, I know it's a bit of a weird thing to keep coming back to, but like I said, you could play this campaign with 100 different groups and 100 different DMs, and you would have a completely different experience every single time. Even though everything on this floor is written in the book, everything, the maps, the placements of enemies, all of that stuff, it's all there. And yet, those two other forces, they are complete factors in terms of how the game is played. It's kind of mind-blowing when you kind of think about the fact that from the outset, when you kind of first go in, you're like, pre-written module, like everyone's going to have the same adventure, right? But no, have a different DM, you'd have a completely different adventure. Have the same DM and a different group, you'd have a completely different adventure. Have the same DM and the same group, but a different module, and you'd have a completely different adventure. It's amazing. These three forces together is what makes D&D D&D. It is a truly group collaborative storytelling exercise that comes together with all three elements. And in this particular session, all three elements were truly, truly top tier. The DM was on his game. The module was interesting. This floor is really well written. I can understand why it's one of his favorite floors, the DM's. And the party, we were actually working as a party, which is lovely. We've all got different abilities and different spells, and we work together, we can solve any problem. It's fantastic. So more like this, and I will see you next time when I believe we're going to be going to the next floor of the dungeon to face the Wizard Killer.